welcome to Get Unruly. Today, I am so excited to have the absolute fabulous, I don't even know if I'm going to say your name right, Anne Bonney. It's Bonnie.
Said it right.
Okay, perfect. For some reason, I froze when I went to say it because I'm that excited to have you on the podcast. We're going to talk about getting uncomfortable and change. And you are known for helping people navigate change, but when it's uncomfortable. And I think one of the things that fascinates me so much about you is that you have a really unusual path that has helped you become an expert in this. So let's start with that.
Well, it all started on a summer day in 1973. No, I was, born here in the U.S. And then when I came home from second grade, my parents said we're moving to Saudi Arabia. We had already moved 3 or 4 times already. And so we moved to Saudi, then we moved to Egypt, then we moved to Greece. Then I got sent to boarding school because I had a particularly unruly freshman year in high school. And then, with all that moving, I kind of became a gypsy at heart and have continued moving. I've moved now 29 times. I literally just bought a house a month ago. So I am moving into the new house, but I moved a lot. I've changed a lot of jobs. I started out my career as a special needs teacher. Then I went and trained animals. I realized that, oh my gosh, that was the dream job I had and I could do it. So I did. And that was awesome. Seals and sea lions in Boston, and then birds of prey down in Arizona. Then I decided I needed a big kid job. So I got a job with Under Armour in Baltimore and worked for them for about 10 years, helping to launch that brand. Then moved on to a group exercise company out of New Zealand. I was still in Baltimore. And then got a job with a large gym chain in New York City. And then realized the big kid jobs were for the birds and I would start my own. And so 10 years ago, I left that, moved in with my parents and started a speaking business. And that was 10 years ago. And the fact that I just bought a house down in St. Pete, Florida about a month ago will kind of illustrate that it's working. So yeah, as I was starting my speaking career, you realize, I could speak on leadership. I could speak on, customer service. I could speak on all these things that I've learned along the way. But one day I was in the shower and I was like, Anne, change. People hate change. That's what you should do. So here we are.
I love that. Okay, so before we get into it, I have to ask you, are we allowed to know what you did in ninth grade to get sent to boarding school?
Oh, I started dating a boy and ran away from home a lot and did all the things that a 14-year-old daughter, you don't want your 14-year-old daughter to do. I did them all. And
okay.
Thank goodness that I got out of that because it was not a healthy path for the sweet little 14-year-old girl. I learned a lot, healthy, great lessons.
Yeah.
I know that most of the gray hair on my parents' head is because of me.
Well, I'm glad that they were able to remove you from that. And sorry for the personal question, but immediately, everybody wants to know.
Yeah.
What caused that? I had to ask.
Answer the question that everybody has.
I had to ask,
right? Perhaps that's why I didn't have children, because that would be, revenge for everything you did to your parents. And no.
I just always say I'm so glad we didn't have phones when I was growing up, because there's no evidence. My kids never got to see any of the things that I did. And so therefore it never happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So when we talk about change, one of the things that I think is so true is, it's inevitable. It happens.
It's constant.
And a lot of times when people know they need to change, they don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And they will sit in the space of, I know I need to change. I can give you all the reasons why I need to change. It has to happen. I need to do it. And yet they will come up with every single reason not to make it happen. I would love to talk about how you particularly get people through that uncomfortable space.
Well, I think self-awareness is kind of the first step to any personal development, any personal change, or acceptance of an external change. And so the awareness that our brains prefer known over unknown is the key here, right? Better the evil than that dark place that could be phenomenal and you got to get out of this one, but I don't know what's happening over there. you know, and that unknown is scarier than even the scariest known. And so having that recognition, as you know, as I'm on stage and I'm talking to large groups of people about the changes they're going through and the fears they have, it becomes having that recognition of why it's so scary, and that fear in your brain should be a speed bump rather than a stop sign. Right? It's in a moment to say, okay, this is scary. Is there a bus coming? Am I about to be eaten by a mastodon? No, I'll probably live through this. It's going to take some courage, but I know it's going to be better on the other side. And that's kind of the first step, is recognizing why it's scary and being able to move anyway. That's true courage.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think sometimes people are like, yeah, I get that, and I just don't have courage. What do you say to that?
Baloney. But me, just like me when I was 14, my parents couldn't say anything to me that would make me learn anything, right? Me saying that doesn't do any good. You know, you learn the lessons when you're ready to learn the lessons.
Yeah.
And they, you know, they say that when the student is ready, the message appears. I'm not gonna say the teacher appears, the message appears.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody does have courage. It just takes, you know, and one of the premises that I talk about is punch it, Margaret. Which is just it's a fun, silly way to give you that 5 seconds of courage that you need to get started. Because oftentimes you don't need long courage. You just need 5 seconds of courage to get started. It's the activation energy that is the hardest part. Because once you're going, you're like, all right, we're good. We're dancing in the discomfort zone now. Let's keep dancing. It's just that 5 seconds. So that punch it, Margaret, is a fun story I tell that helps to just give you that little burst. Because again, you don't need to have a whole body full of courage. You just need it in that one foot to take that first step.
I love that. Who's Margaret?
My grandma.
Oh,
you want to know the story?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was an English teacher, right? She was also a very cautious driver, almost to the point of being dangerous. Definitely to the point of inconveniencing everybody on the road in Greensboro, North Carolina. And so one summer, my brother and I were driving with her. She was driving, and we come to a 4-way stop. She, of course, you know, comes to a complete stop, lets everybody go that's their turn, and then uses the English teacher look on everybody else at the intersection so that they know that it is her turn. And then she eases into the intersection. I mean, we get halfway through. She's still going 2 miles an hour. And I can tell my brother in the front seat is about to lose his stuff. And he turns to her and he goes, punch it, Margaret. And it wasn't a good moment at the time because, I mean, she punched it, but then she pulled over to yell at him. But like that funny little, and it's from a Toyota commercial in the 70s, you know, but that little punch it, Margaret, that little juice you get from saying that to yourself can give you that. It makes you laugh a little, which makes you relax.
Yeah.
It helps you to be able to, again, take that first step. So
I love that.
Yeah. Yep. I got stickers too, you know, I give them out at my keynotes.
That's amazing. And I think that is it's such great advice too, because I think a lot of times people just need to get going, right? It's that resistance to even that first step. And they're thinking about it in like the big global way of, oh my gosh, this feels really big. And so the idea of just do something, just go.
Well, and that's the thing. Do something. Action shrivels anxiety. When we're being anxious about something, we're sitting around on the porch of our old comfort zone, right? We know we need to go out into the discomfort zone, but we don't want to leave the porch because there's a lot of risk. And we're swirling around in the anxiety of what could happen.
Right.
Still anticipating future and rolling around in all the old information. Once we get off the porch, start dancing, start moving, do something. Even if it's just a small step, asking a question, looking something up online, we start to learn new things. And the anxiety goes down because we realize it's just not that bad. Part of analysis paralysis, and I hate that term because it doesn't come out of my face, right? I call it hesitation nation. Part of being stuck in hesitation nation is that fear of what could happen. and making it way bigger than it usually is. And so I always say action shrivels anxiety. Just take a step, do something in that direction, and things start to become more clear and less scary.
I love that. I love that. Because anticipating is also trying to predict the future, right? Which we cannot do.
Right?
Yeah, like ever.
And you know what? That voice of doubt in your head is always going to make it way worse than it. I mean, not that it possibly could be. Yeah, it could end up that bad, but it's really unlikely.
Yeah.
You know? And our brain, but the challenge is our inner voice of doubt knows everything we've screwed up, every time we've embarrassed ourselves, all the full sheaths of Girl Scout cookies that we ate, you know, what we didn't know, what we don't, what we've, you know, it has all the data, which makes it really hard to trust ourselves that even if it doesn't go the perfect way, we'll figure it out.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add in one other element, which is the thing I love to talk about, which are the rules, right? So all the rules we've been taught about what we're allowed to have, what we're allowed to do, what is going to help us be successful, what is going to help us get to the place we're supposed to be, what's going to make us, you know, admired and respected and all of those things. We have all of that we're looking at too.
Yep.
And so,
and recognizing what those quote unquote rules are, you know, they're made up from society, or they're people trying to keep us safe by not taking the risk of action, the risk of change, right? I mean, there are all kinds of things. I read a book, my very first personal development book, The Art of Possibility by Ben and Rosamund Zander. And one of their rules is it is all invented. And that blew my mind. Recognizing that most of the shoulds should be considered. And if we do decide to go forward with the rules, we did it on purpose, not because there's somebody else's rules.
Yeah. So do you have any rules that are stuck in your life or that are keeping you from doing the thing you're meant to do in the biggest way?
Probably.
Can you you're like, yes.
This is something that I've been thinking a lot about. I mean, obviously, when you start your own business, you leave a big fat 6-figure corporate career in New York City to move in with your parents and start a new business.
Yeah.
You've already tackled some of those, you know.
Absolutely.
You should stay at a job, you should, you know, security, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always confronting these as an entrepreneur, as an intentional person. You know, one of the big ones, I think I can still go farther with it, though I have gone a long way, as you can tell by the I Like Turtles t-shirt and the pompadour hairdo. I always thought you have to be small, you have to be good in order to be loved, in order to be appreciated, in order to be liked. And so for a while in my speaking business, I had just a nice little well-behaved pixie cut. And I tried to wear suits and, you know, official business outfits like I should, because I'm a businesswoman. This is serious. And I had a really hard time showing up authentically.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so this, you should be serious and look like a businesswoman and all that stuff was shrinking who I actually was and what I was capable of. And when I feel comfortable to go just do me, it works so much better and it's so much more fun for everyone.
Yes.
You know, but that's one of the ones that I think I'm probably still working on a little bit, despite the fact that my hair looks like it's on fire.
Well, it's hard because that message is so strong. I mean, I got the same message. And, you know, even when you know that when you're totally authentic, your people find you, you're way more effective, you're having more fun, you're doing the thing you're really meant to do in the biggest way possible. There's still that voice that has been there for so long that's trying to tell you what it's really supposed to be, that, you know, it peaks its head. And I love that we're talking about this because I think sometimes people look at, you know, they look at you, right? And they're like, she's so amazing and successful and larger than life. And, you know, people will see the version of you on stage. And to know that there is also messaging about what, people said you should be and that didn't serve you is really helpful to people who are listening to us talk, right?
Well, and part of that, don't be too big, don't be too,
Yeah.
out there, goes with don't show off.
Correct.
I went to a performing arts high school. The boarding school that I got sent to, thank God, was not a reform school. It was the Interlochen Center for the Arts, which is a phenomenal school for developing young artists. I was a singer. I sang opera. I have some pipes. I can make some singing. And I didn't sing for a long time. And then people are saying, you need to add it to your keynote, blah, blah, blah. You and I are having the same conversation. You with the dancing, me with the adding music to my keynotes. I learned how to play the guitar 2 years ago so that I could add music to my keynotes. And so I could add that element. And it's terrifying, right? Because I don't want to be a show off. I don't want to just be out there singing because I can. It has to serve the message. But then once I realize how to do it right, I need to do it full on. There's the one I'm still working on because I'm still afraid to fully commit to that. So there's the one I'm working on.
Well, this idea of not being a show off, right? Like, let's unpack that for a minute, because I think a lot of us have been told that, but what is that really? When you think about that message, somebody says, don't be a show off. It's really not about you at all.
Right.
Who's that about?
Well, it's about the person saying it, right? Because they're uncomfortable, either that you're getting attention or that, you're being loud or you're drawing the attention to yourself. I don't know what their discomfort is, but it's on them.
Right. And it can also be that they would never be comfortable with that kind of attention, right? Or that somebody told them it was bad to show off or to be big. And they lived their whole life really, really small, even though they wanted to be bigger than they are. And so the thought of somebody else breaking out of that rule is utterly unbearable to them. So it's like, well, if I had to play small, girlfriend, you better play small too. Like, who even knows, right?
Right. Especially when it's your kid or your spouse, those people that are really, really close to you that you desperately want to protect from the dangers of doing the thing, right?
Right. Especially if they think that we might be embarrassed or ridiculed or rejected, like all the things.
Yep.
But ultimately, that's up to us to decide.
Right. And, and this is one of the things that we all need to recognize. And one of the other topics that I love and that I also speak on is emotional intelligence and the recognition that we can't run anybody else's life. We don't know what's right for them. We can impart our knowledge and our experience, but only as that. And so often we cut people down at something that they could be phenomenal at because of our own fears. And here we are. Yep.
No, I love that. And I think people do it unknowingly. I went through a phase where I thought it was kind of malicious. I'm not going to lie. I'd be like, you're an ass for, basically saying you can't do this, you can't do that. Like, I had a real attitude about it. But what I've sort of come to realize is that people just see life from their own perspective and their own experiences, and they genuinely just do. And so when they say you can't do that or you can't have that or don't do that, that's dangerous or scary or never going to work, it's because it wouldn't work for them, or they weren't meant to do it, or it's not in their wheelhouse, or they have no lived experience of it. But it doesn't mean it's not going to work for me or you.
Right. Exactly. And we might fail as gloriously as they did when they tried it. But I'm never going to let that go for myself until I fall down and skin my knee. And then you know what? I might still try it again, because if it's that important to me and feels that right, I'm going to go do the thing.
Yeah. I love that. Do you have any advice for people who really want to do a thing, but are scared?
Well, I mean, it's everything we've been talking about, right? Recognize that fear is your brain trying to keep you alive, but your brain is 100% risk averse, right? It does not, it just wants to keep you alive. It doesn't want to keep you happy. We are at a place where our basic needs in the world are generally met. And so we're moving towards that self-actualization. We're moving towards that personal development, which means we're doing things that are beyond just survival. We're trying to thrive. And so recognizing our brain is there for survival. And so that fear, perfectly normal, perfectly great, if there's a bus coming, but merely that pause to say, okay, I've thought this through. I'm going to go do this. And then using that punch at Margaret or whatever is going to get you to move through and take that first step. Because, and oftentimes I think of that too. Like when I was starting adding guitar to, and music to my keynotes, I didn't immediately go up and start singing in my keynote, right? I started taking lessons on the guitar. Then I started practicing the song. Then I did it for a few people. I did it at an open mic. I kind of practiced it in low stakes environment. You don't have to go all in. Just take a little step. Just approximate. Don't worry about the finish line. Just get to that first milestone. Then you can reassess and say, all right, cool. I did that. The other thing I want you to do, I did that. So let's go to the next milestone, right? Take it one bite at a time. The other thing I want you to do is when that fear is happening, your brain's going to tell you all the reasons it's not going to work, and perhaps the people around you, all the reasons it's not going to work, all the reasons it's a bad idea, all the reasons you have no business doing this, right? I want you to talk to your brain rather than listen to your brain and ask, what if this goes well? Like wander down that path.
I love that. That is a brilliant reframe. What if this goes well?
And list it out, journal it, like make a voice memo. I talk to myself in the car all the time. People in traffic probably think I'm crazy, but talk it out, like go all into it, wander down that path and get into that forest of what if this goes well? Dream for a minute, because our brain's going to automatically give us the negative. So we need to talk to it rather than listen to it and say, okay, yeah, all that could happen. And if this goes well, boom, 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 boom.
I love that so much because I think we don't do that, right? We default to the what can go wrong, right? And then we get freaked out and
completely understandably,
and then we don't move. But if we don't often give ourselves the luxury of thinking about what happens when it goes right.
Exactly.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Really
and
powerful.
The other thing that can help is, what am I saying no to by not going here, right? What am I going to be missing out on by leaving it just the way it is? Because so often when we stay safe, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities. And so by saying, what am I saying yes to? By saying no to that. And oftentimes you're saying yes to stagnation, moderate, sort of, what's the middle word for like mediocrity? That's the word. And you're like, all that feels yucky. This is not what I want.
I love that. And it's true, right? Because if your plate's completely full with stuff that's kind of like meh, you have no space for fabulous, exceptional, I'm lit up by this. You don't, right? So amazing. So just to circle back on one thing you said, because I think it's really, really important. You made the point earlier that when you started speaking, you tried to be very kind of buttoned up and you had the hair and you wore suits and stuff like that. And obviously that's not you. This is you. So which worked better?
Oh, this by a friggin' mile. Like ridiculously stupid this. And it feels so much better. Like it feels like I can just be me. And my audiences respond better, so they get more from my messaging. It's stupid, the difference.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And it feels like that's so obvious, but I just wanted to make the point for the listeners, because I think there's so many people who are still trying to be a version of what they were told they needed to be and leaving so much of themselves out of the equation. And so I can't help but make the point twice, right? When there's an example.
Right. And I needed to get used to the fact that some people are still uncomfortable with it. Yeah, I make a joke about the lady with the crazy hair. I make a joke about that kind of to put people at ease, but I don't apologize for it in that process. Right. But some people still are not all about me, and that is fine. I am not a taco. I can't make everyone happy.
That's right.
And that's another thing that you need to recognize. If you decide to wear giant, flamboyantly bright, butterfly colored maxi dresses, some people are going to be like, ugh, even, let them.
Right.
Let them.
Yeah. And I think, the one thing that really has stuck with me that I heard recently is that if you're being a version of you that isn't you, your people can't find you.
Right. And
so while you're trying to be all the things to all the people, you're so watered down that the people you're really meant to reach can't find you anyway.
And so, most importantly, you feel stunted
correct.
And gross and not comfortable and free and easy and at peace. And, it just from you, it feels bad.
Yeah. So I think we both agreed it's so much better to just be fully you and let your people find you, and the people who aren't for you, it's okay.
Right.
No worries.
With the caveat, of course, that you're not kicking puppies and hurting people,
No, of course not. Of course
I
not.
To draw that because my brain goes there. It's like, well, if doing you means, kicking puppies or hurting kids, and you need to fix that part. But the rest of it, do the hair and the dress.
Yes. Thank you for that. In case anybody out there wanted to kick puppies or hurt people, do not kick puppies or hurt people.
Right. Well, and the other piece to recognize here, and in the world today where we do have a mental health epidemic happening, people are having challenges with anxiety, with depression. If you try these things and they just don't work and you're still swirling around in the fear and all that, it may be a time to get some professional help. Just recognizing that too, that can make all the difference if that's what your body and your brain need.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for the conversation today. You're fabulous.
And you're fabulous too.
This was super fun. Please, I'm going to put your links and all of your information in the notes. You have books.
I do have books.
Do you want to tell everybody about your books?
Sure. They're 2 fun, short tip books on dealing with change and on leading through change. So the one for individuals is called Get Over It. And somebody gave me a hard time the other day about that title, like, oh, it's rude to tell people to get over it. And I'm like, no, wouldn't you love to get over it though? Like, it would be really nice. Here's a book that can help you get over it. Like, let's get over this together, not get over it. I wouldn't have written the book if I meant that. So Get Over It is the book on dealing with change as an individual. And then Get Them Over It is the book on leading through change. And these are short, small tips. I joke about keep the book on the back of your toilet because sometimes that's the only time you get 2 or 3 minutes of quiet. Read a couple pages, put it down, absorb them throughout the day, and put it into action. So it's a nice, easy read. They're on Amazon and everywhere else books are sold.
I love it. And I'll put the links in the show notes also.
Thank
you for being here today.
Yeah, my pleasure, Kim. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Of course. This is Kim Belorchi, and you've been listening to Get Unruly. If you're enjoying the show, we would love it if you would take a minute and give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. And if you know anyone who needs to hear this episode, please don't hesitate to pass it on. Until next time, stay unruly.